right, so we had a question about whether calculating marginals can be done by, like a marginal output or a marginal product, can it be done by dividing by the number of hours?
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. So if we had like a TP or a total product column, and we had the number of hours that people work.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say if you have 0 hours of work, then obviously nothing gets produced. I'm just going to take the numbers from page 113 at the top. So that question 12, it might be completely unrelated to talking about hours worked and total product, but I'm just going to use the numbers that are there. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, and we go down to 6. And then the other column, their total benefit of activity X, 30, 54, 72, 84, 92, 98. So let me first see what this looks like as far as the data goes. And I want my hours work to be my independent, so I gotta flip these graphs around. Hours work should be my X axis, total product should be my Y. So I'm getting kind of a hill shape, which was similar. I mean, that was the total benefit column. And in the way I'm setting it up here, where you have these different amount of hours that people are working, then the benefit of working is that you generate this output, this total product. So I'm getting this curve that has kind of this shape to it, which looks like a lot of the other total benefit curves did. There's the picture on page 94 of the total benefit line. And if you're not getting these page numbers, you can always go back and watch the video as I throw out these page numbers. Page 90 at the top, there's a total benefit line with that kind of curvature to it. So it looks similar to how the other ones did. If I just do total product divided by hours, obviously I can't do the first one because that's dividing by 0. But I do this, that. Then all this is really giving me, you could call it an average product, I guess, because it's just averaging. I've got 98 units of output and 6 hours of work. So if I just do 98 divided by 6, then it's telling me that on average, every hour of work is producing about 16.33 units of output. But that's not telling me, again, the concept of marginal is always, if you do one more of this activity, then how much does the benefit change? So if I'm trying to find like a marginal product, I should write that out. Then again, this is like additional product from one more hour worked. Well, when I go from, if I just pay attention to these down here, when I went from 5 hours to 6 hours, I can see the average output per hour changed, but that's not the same type of question as how much extra output occurs from this extra hour of work going from 5 to 6. So if I go from 5 hours to 6 hours, then the total product went from 92 units up to 98. So technically the way that marginal product is calculated is the change here, how much additional product occurs when you have one more hour work. So I'm going to figure out, in this case, the change in the number of hours worked is always one more extra hour. So going from 5 to 6 or 2 to 3, it's always one more hour. So it might seem a little superfluous to do this complicated subtraction here. But I'll just do it just to be careful. And then, so that's the denominator part of it. And then the additional product is, well, when I went from 5 hours to 6 hours, the output went from 92 units up to 98 units. And I can just figure that out by hand and know that that's 6 extra units.
Okay, I get it.
So again, it's just doing it, dividing by the hours is just going to give you the average. Marginals, you can actually calculate the first one, because when I go from 0 hours to 1, when there was 1 additional hour worked, then the additional product that was generated, well, it went from 0 to 30, so that was an extra 30 units. When I went from 1 hour of work to 2 hours of work, output went from 30 up to 54, which was an increase of 24 units. 54 to 78 was an increase in 18 units. Then when I switched this around a little while ago, I wanted to do 2, 4, 6. So if I change the hours worked column here, then my picture still looks the same. If I just graphed the hours of work and the total product, I still get this total product line that has kind of this curvature to it. But all the other numbers are going to change because I'm dividing by different numbers of hours of work. And you have to be a little more careful because when I did it before, it was fairly easy to do because I didn't really have to do a lot. I could just do this just by looking at it and go, well, from 5 to 6, this increased by 6. So I knew that this last one was going to be 6. And going from 4 to 5, output went from 84 up to 92. So I knew that it had to be 8. So I could pretty much calculate those in my head without having to think about it. But when these numbers are different, then I do have to think about it. I mean, the averages here are a little more complicated too. You could maybe do 30 divided by 2, but I can't do 54 divided by 4 in my head. I know I can't do 98 divided by 12 in my head. But the marginal column is going to be a little different now because I'm not in the table. The tables are not increasing by 1 hour increments. They're increasing by 2 hour increments. But the marginals are always defined as the additional output that occurs from having only 1 more hour of work in this case. So I have to do the change there to be able to calculate it. So I can't just divide it by 1 like I was able to in the previous example. I got to make sure I'm subtracting, finding the difference between the hours worked and then finding the difference here too. And let's see, I'm hoping I described that fairly well. Net benefit is those, marginal benefit, change in total benefit divided by the change in the activity. So that was basically how I calculated it. The change in the benefit is the numerator, so that's the change in the total product, divided by the change in the activity. Well, the activity increased from 10 hours up to 12 hours. And again, I got the change in the benefit went from 92 units up to 98. They may sound like they're similar ideas, average product, marginal product, but they're calculated differently, and they're defined very differently too. I mean, the idea is, on average, how much output does an hour of work generate versus if we increase our hours worked by 1 more hour, then how much extra output is going to be generated from that. So they're two similar, but actually very different questions.